I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And we are the Heroes 3. Welcome to Heroes 3, the bi-weekly podcast where three friends explore the best, worst, and everything in between in the world of Asian cinema. Please check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are at Heroes, the number 3 podcast on all three of them. And this week we are continuing our arc looking at drunken martial art movies with 1979's Dance of the Drunk Mantis, which is also directed by Yuen and is it was kind of marketed as a direct sequel to Drunken Master, isn't that right?
Yeah, in some markets, it even had that title, Drunken Master 2. And sometimes that, you could argue maybe that was used to almost exploit folks once there was Drunken Master 2 starring Jackie Chan. There was some maybe bargain bin VHS and funny. DVD retailers that, it's like, oh, my mom ordered the wrong Drunken Master 2 kind of a thing. Yeah. But if your mom did that, you should thank her because this is...
this is not a bad one to accidentally pick
this
up.
is a Kung Fu classic, but it definitely at the time laid claim to being the sequel to the legendary movie that we covered in our last episode, Drunken Master. And it was released pretty shortly thereafter. So Drunken Master came out, I want to say, in October of 1978. And Dance of the Drunk Mantis came out in Hong Kong in June of 1979. And in between that period, Yuen Woo-ping had choreographed a couple of other films that he didn't direct. And as we mentioned on a previous episode, Yun Xiu-chen, Simon Yuen, was busy in a lot of these Drunken and Snake and the Eagle Shadow imitator films. According to some, I've seen some people point to this as his final on-screen film appearance, but it's a little tricky because there were movies that came out posthumously, and we've, I think, talked about this in the past, but the shooting schedule on a lot of Hong Kong films at the time was such that people could be working on more than one project at once.
Yeah.
So it gets a little confusing there, but the last major role in a film directed by his dad and filling the shoes of Jackie Chan is none other than his own biological son, younger brother to Yuen Woo-ping, Yun Shun-yi, who is, honestly, he's one of my favorite leading men in this era of Hong Kong, even though he can't kind of claim that title for all that many movies.
I think he's great. I think that there's something really endearing about him. He actually does kind of have some of that same Jackie Chan energy. I think when you see him in these training sequences, straining, and kind of how his comedic timing in action and in acting, I think really can go hand in hand with what people expect out of Jackie Chan. And I think that I don't think it's such a hot take to say that this is Drunken Master 2, because I think in a lot of ways there's more of the original Drunken Master's DNA in this film than what you end up seeing in Jackie's Drunken Master 2. I mean, that's
an interesting take. I think I'd agree. Also, we talked about in the previous episode, Beggar So or So Hot Yi is being the character that the title refers to. He is the Drunken Master. So as disappointed as someone might be to not find Jackie in this movie, we really are following a major character. Although we should say this uses a kind of sequel logic that we don't see so much anymore in the States, where we're not trying to kind of firmly connect every character and every piece of information from one movie to the next. And we're seeing some of the same actors playing different parts, namely our villain, Huang Zhengli, who's now playing this amazing character, Rubber Legs, instead of Thunderfoot.
It's
and
too good.
Yeah, and then we also have Linda Lin back, as we alluded to last time, but not clearly not playing the same character as in Drunken Master.
I think we're blessed to have these two Drunken Master 2s. You know what I mean?
Right.
Drunken Master 2, Jackie Chan people, everybody, it's one of their go-tos for best kung fu film of all time. Rightly so. It's amazing, and I can't wait for us to talk about it. But I think that this Dance of the Drunk Mantis is so much fun and so kind of wacky that I love it being a follow-up to Drunken Master. It just kind of turns everything up. You still get the really strong fight choreography, obviously, and you get a lot of goofiness in the film. I do think that it kind of is paced a little not as good as Drunken Master. Kind of like if you were to split this into 4 parts, like the third section of the film is kind of slow.
Yeah, 3 of 4 is, and also just a little surprising where the story goes and the new character that's introduced.
Right, but
yeah, that's probably the biggest. That's the thing that happens in a lot of these movies, is where like the most important part to the rest of the plot gets introduced in the third act instead of in the first act.
Yeah. But I think honestly how it all pulls together, like at the very end of the film, is really good. And if in a perfect world, if you were able to get this like redone with all these people in their prime and just kind of tighten up that third section, it would be awesome. It would be amazing.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think I'd have to agree. And this is oversimplifying things a little bit, but in some ways it kind of combines what's great about Drunken Master and what's great about Snake in the Eagle Shadow into one sort of project. We talked in the last episode about how Jackie's character is so markedly different in those two films. And in Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, he's more of this Cinderella kind of guy, a little more down on his luck, not respected by his peers, has a lot to learn. And in Drunken Master, he's this headstrong, cocky Wong Fei-hung character. And now we get to have Beggar So and a little bit of the drunken boxing, but our protagonist is a lot more similar to the character that Jackie played in Snake in the Eagle Shadow. And
yeah, he's a lot more down on his luck, a lot more like, I just need to learn from the right master and then I'll become great. And also, going along with the characters that are in both of those, Beggar So is a lot more of a jerk in this than he is in those other movies.
Definitely. It's hard to put your finger at really who the protagonist of this film is. I mean, I think both of the Yuen men here could lay claim to that. And if you are seeing Beggar So as the lead of the movie, he kind of goes through a similar arc that Wong Fei-hung did in Drunken Master, accompanied by even a similar montage. There it was his great shame, and here it's So Hot Yi's great shame, and maybe how he acted to Yun Chun-yi's character. But I think all of this is made all the more poignant by the fact that we are seeing a real father and son.
Yeah, that's why I didn't
but
know
they're having so much fun with it, because it's like, oh, he's not my real son. He's made to be like this adopted or stepson or something.
Sure. I do like that too. Great. There's that. And there's a couple of these fourth wall breaking kind of jokes in this film that are really fun for people who know who they're looking at. I think of that relationship, and I also think of right at the beginning where we've got Brandy as the fake.
Yes, that made me. I was so like, whenever I saw that, I was like, oh, this must be what Marty and Carlos feel like all the time. So I was like, oh, Brandy Ewan's playing fake Beggar So, but he plays the body double for Beggar So in the other movies.
That's really fun, and I think
great.
It's really fun when you know who you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely one of those in the know kind of jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But yeah, so we have a couple of other familiar faces kind of rounding out the cast. a brief role that Dean Sheck plays. This is one of my
it
favorite
might be the
parts
Dean
of his.
Sheckiest role that he's done.
Dean
Like,
Shecky
it's like the
is
logical
amazing.
it's like the logical conclusion of some of the other ones that we've seen him in.
Right.
Great.
And then the newest additions to the cast, though they're going to be familiar to listeners of the show, but would be Yuen Kuei, or Corey Yuen as he's known these days. Probably most famous as a director and action choreographer himself. But at one point he was very tight with the Yuen clan. Now, this is where our Yuen name gets to be a little bit confusing.
Mm-hmm.
So Corey Yuen, he is using that as an honorific for the same teacher that he and Jackie and Yuen Bu had. So Yuen Bu, Corey Yuen, that's one branch. That's one master, one family.
That's the not biological Yuens.
And then we mentioned in our last episode, Brandy Yuen, that's an honorific for Yuen Siu Ten, or Simon Yuen, who is the biological father of this film's director and its leading man.
I think that if you are drinking something when you're listening to this, before we start talking about the movie, you should pour one out for Simon Yuen, because
Dude,
like we said, he did pass. I think it was the January before this film was released, and man, he's the best. So
yeah, dude,
pour one out for our boy,
as you could say.
Old Dirty, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pour one out for Simon Yuen. And I guess we should jump into this episode then, right? All right, well, first, let's take a look at the back of the VHS.
Beggar So's drunken fist skill is known across the southern land, but from the north, there is another master thirsty for glory. His name is Rubberlegs, and he's taken his drunken fist and combined it with the mantis style to create a deadly new art, the Drunken Mantis. And with this secret skill, he sets his sight on his prey. However, that isn't the only problem for our inebriated hero. Returning home after some time, Beggar So finds out that he has an adopted son, Foggy. So's wife tasks him to train Foggy in the drunken fist, whether he wants to or not. Foggy's skills are lacking, but he strives for a sunny day where he can live up to the father's name. On the brink of defeat, he finds the Sick Fist Master, and this unorthodox teacher unlocks Foggy's true potential. Yun Wu Ping follows up the magic of Drunken Master with a deadly ballet. Simon Yuen and Yun Shun Yi, father and son, face off against Huang Zhong Li in Dance of the Drunk Mantis.
So this movie starts off with like a kind of a last time on, which is kind of fun, or at least in the cut I saw. Or are the other cuts different than this one?
This is the only cut that I'm familiar with, and it's funny. It even has the same defects to the print. Even though I know this, we're watching a different DVD than the one that I had, but
that's funny.
So yeah, there's some notable ones towards the very end of the movie. The film gets really
I thought the film was about to catch on fire by the end of it.
But I do think
I thought there might have just been a weird problem with like my phone playing it or something. But
I do think there were different cuts at one point in time, because even on this copy that we're watching, which has the English dub and the Cantonese and the Mandarin dubs, there's at least one moment in particular where the English dub goes from stereo to mono.
I noticed that.
Yeah, for like a few seconds.
It's like just a couple of seconds, too.
That you opened your eyes. Oh, Sam Siege, you met my expectation. There's more.
Yeah, so it seems like that had to be sourced. It's the same. It comes from the same dub recording, but a different source of that actual audio. So there must have been some different versions of the film, and I think what we're seeing is maybe the longer of those available versions.
It's funny, the mono for a couple of seconds part, it then turns into how Drunken Master sounded. It then goes back to this actually pretty good quality version of the dub.
Yeah, it's nice. And speaking of the dub, the cast of voices has gone back to kind of the more traditional characterizations. And even though we have those same guys in the recording, we have a different voice cast for Beggar So or Sam the Seed. I mean, I think this works great. These are kind of the kung fu voices I hear in my head. But if you are a hardcore fan of the English dub of Drunken Master, probably good to prepare yourself for that being, slightly recast.
Yeah, I was thinking that the voices kind of fit a little better here, and that I know we saw all their names at one point in the past, but the guy who does the voice of Dean Check's character is perfect, and he has like this super distinct kind of like super quiet, kind of like mousy kind of voice.
Yeah, I used to think.
But he was
I think it reminds me of like Rabbit in Winnie the Pooh, like in the
you said that. Yeah, you said that before.
But I'll edit in whatever his name is. But I just remember he was the one in 36 Chamber Shaolin who says,
"Do not enter the dining hall until you are fully cleansed."
Oh, my favorite line.
And yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he voiced Freddie Wong in Drunken Master, that was kind of the working against type for these dub guys. But yeah, I love this opening this previously on. We actually reuse a little bit of footage from Drunken Master from the scene where Beggar So is first teaching Wong Fei Hung the drunken style, so we don't see
being
any
careful
shots
to
of
not show
Jackie. Yeah.
And don't have to pay anyone any extra royalties,
right? And intercut among these kind of montagey flashbacks are these two ominous figures that are kind of marching along this cliffside, and it's Huang Zhangli, but he's kind of ditched his Drunken Master 70s getup. He's back to the kind of period white wig look, and then he's joined by Yuen, who's carrying this interesting spear, which he'll luckily come to use in the movie.
Yeah, so these two masters they're describing are familiar Beggar So, and what you learn to be basically his self-proclaimed rival, Rubber Legs, and it's another case of North versus South styles. So what they say is Beggar So, obviously the master of the Drunken Fist, and Rubber Legs also practiced Drunken Fist, but what he's done is he's secretly combined it with the Mantis style. So
so sneaky, man.
Yeah, this is what we come to know as the dance of the Drunk Mantis. And that leads right into what we were talking about earlier. So Rubber Legs is kind of chilling out at the restaurant, and he sees who he believes is Beggar So. And what we find out is that this isn't Beggar So, but it's a man that's using the guise of Beggar So to get free meals.
Right. And yeah, to basically like put drinks and food on Beggar So's tab. And so this breaks into a fight, and I love how Yuen Woo-ping shoots this, where this is the spot we were talking about in the beginning, where this is Brandy Yuen kind of cheekily playing this Beggar So imitator, and like we said, he's the guy who's almost always doubling for Beggar So, so there's kind of a cool little meta joke there.
Yeah,
but Yuen Woo-ping shoots it the way he would shoot Brandy when he's doubling, so we never really see his face until Rubber Legs makes his accusation, and then he turns and faces the camera. And I just love how this is paced, because if the audience is likely a little suspicious at first, and now we know for sure, oh, that's not him, and we cut into this great fight. Corey Yuen and Brandy Yuen are just their timing and honestly the shapes that they stick in this fight are so striking. I like that, man.
Brandy Yuen does some amazing like rolls into splits and then into handstands, and like they grab each other and spin each other around, and it's amazing, and it's cool to. I'll definitely make some GIFs of it, but it's a little harder to make GIFs of it because it is the opening credits, so some of the stuff's kind of obscured by the credits. But it's still amazing.
The other thing I'd like to mention is that if you're paying close attention and you're kind of watching these films based on the episodes we're releasing, you'll recognize this setting, and this is actually where Wong Fei Hung, Freddy, fights the
King
Stick
of Sticks.
King. Yeah. So There's a really cool blog. It's called like Hong Kong Movie Tours, and we'll definitely link to this. And they document how these settings have changed over the years, and kind of do this, like they try to mimic the perspective of the photos based on shots in the film, and you can see really cool like how they've modernized the space. So this is a place called Chat Sing Temple, and it is in Shap Ze Huang, part of the northern Sai-Kung territories in Hong Kong.
Huh, so he's even in the north as the northern style guy.
Yeah. They don't really describe where he's coming from, but it seems like he's traveled quite a distance to find Beggar So and kill him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we should say that the getup that Huang Zhongli is in is very Pai Mei, like with the white and the huge eyebrows and everything.
For sure.
Yeah.
So when I first saw that was a cool. Like, I didn't recognize him with the makeup, and when I saw Huang Zhongli, I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, and since you're mentioning hairstyles, in this film, Yuen Shenyi has, like, such a, like, modern-looking hairstyle. He's trimmed really
very
tight.
close-cropped and stuff.
Yeah. So we get introduced to him here. He's working in a restaurant, and here we have another great gag. As we're going through this intro, where they're each... like what we come to know as the protagonists, each of them are introduced. They're all dealing with scammers. Did you guys notice this?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, a lot of this movie is about people not wanting to pay what they're owed or what they owe.
But you gotta love the ingenuity of these two scammers here. So
this is just such a delightful scene. Like, this is the kind of thing I'd put on at, like a real rough, depressing day or something. It's just it's like this is what you love about Hong Kong action and kung fu comedy. And I think in this scene, this is where Yuen Shenyi could have made a real claim to be kind of the next fill in the blank.
So we've got two guys here, and they're looking to get a free meal, and they have a tool that they use, and as actually they just like to throw a fly in their bowl of noodles and say that, hey, there's a fly in my food, so give me the meal for free. But I love that Yuen Shenyi's character is so quick about it that he goes, he looks at it and he grabs it and eats it, and he's like, oh, it's an onion, really good.
Yeah.
They're like, what the hell? So then
and while he's turned around like spitting it out, they're like, okay, we'll screw this guy, and then they dump like all the flies they have into their bowl of rice.
And the dub lines are so well delivered, like,
hey, I got some more onions. Huh?
So this naturally escalates into a fight, and I love that the two scammers have their own martial arts styles that they represent, and it's chicken fist and duck fist.
It's so cool. Styles. It's like cartoony, and then you even hear the sound effects of chickens and ducks when they're posing.
And not only is it just them as a joke posing in the style, their choreography actually represents these animals as well. So The chicken fist man has like a pecking ground attack, and the duck has these flappy wing attacks. It's so fun.
And this is a just super delightful scene. It's like really cool location, this restaurant. But even though our opening fight scene also took place at an outdoor restaurant, these somehow feel pretty distinctive and really fun, inventive choreography with Yuen Shenyi versus these two guys. And he's not inclined to go hog wild at first, and it kind of gradually ramps up, and he kind of shows these guys what's up.
And that result is that he gets fired.
Yeah, that's great. And that's one of those awesome like Hong Kong comedy bits where his manager it's similar to Robert Wong in the last movie. But he's like giving him this big thumbs up, you're fired, and then like that turn on a dime thing.
Yeah, it's great. So now let's get to the next set of scammers.
The next scam, scammer number 3.
We cut to a marketplace, and we see what you think is a couple, but what you find out is this is a man and a woman that are working together to scam someone out of money. So they pick a seemingly innocent old man, and that's Beggar So himself. And what they plan on doing is framing him as the father for a fake pregnancy.
Yeah, that he impregnated this woman, and then they're saying that they're brother and sister.
Yeah, they make a huge scene trying to embarrass him and distract him enough that they can get away with his money, but he's not gonna let that happen.
And Simon plays this so well, where it's like he kind of is alternating between taking them really seriously and seeing right through this kind of nonsense.
So now when this escalates, we have the bystanders watching this play out, and one of those is Yuen Chun-yi. So he jumps in the way, thinking that Beggar So is kind of like the villain in this scenario. Mm-hmm. So they make off with his money. This kind of makes a little encounter between Yuen Chun-yi and Beggar So.
And this choreography is just awesome. How this all works, and they very quickly get back into that iconic pose of Beggar So on somebody's shoulders.
Yeah.
I think that's really nice.
I do like the low angle shot of Simon with his hands swinging around like it looks so fake.
Right,
it's so fake and fun. I like it a lot.
But so the scammers get away, and we get the first interaction between who we find out later, our father and adopted son. And there's some great double lines here. The double lines aren't quite as classic as Drunken Master, but there's still some pretty good ones. So our protagonist's name is Foggy, played by Yuen Chun-yi, and he says to him,
"You've got a peg loose. Your mother could have farted a better egg than you."
Yeah.
And he's explaining how there's no way that he could have impregnated this woman. And Foggy says to him,
"Even old shells still have pearls in them."
Right?
Right.
Is it? Yeah. That's really good.
A weird expression.
Oh
man, that's great. And then we cut to a different location and sort of brand new characters for us. There's looks like some kind of maybe mob boss or henchman or something, and he's trying to collect some money that So-Hat-Yi or Beggar So owes, but he is trying to get this out of a new character played by Linda Lin, who had that awesome turn in Drunken Master as Wong Fei-hung's aunt that beats him up and and then gives him a little bit of advice when he's in one of those early fights at the kung fu school. And she makes similar kind of mincemeat out of this guy when she refuses to kind of pay up his money. And it's so cool watching her. She's just a really unique performer, and she's striking these poses, and you really feel kind of the Peking opera tradition.
Yeah.
But once again, Yuen Wu-ping and the choreography team, they're so great at just knowing how to showcase her movements and stuff.
Yeah, they really give her she looks so graceful when she does her attacks, and she can just extend so high with her kicks. And I love how she always has this confident kind of hands on her hip kind of pose while she's like doing all these fun kicks. So she works really well, and I definitely want to see more of her. So I'm gonna try and seek her out in other films that I might haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, compared to some of the people, she's done 6 or 7 films as opposed to the hundreds that some of these people have done.
Right.
So
I should do that due diligence too. From what I've heard, this is kind of like her meatiest role.
I think I'd imagine so, but I mean, it'd still be fun to see what else comes from
totally
her filmography. And the guy that she beats up, and she gives him some lumps too. They do the great prosthetic lumps. This is Chen Yue-tsang, who we've seen in a handful of films. Like, I think just off the top of my head, he was in Iron Fisted Monk. He was one of the Manchus, I believe. And he's also listed as one of the action directors on this film. So I don't know if that means it was in this sequence, or maybe he was involved in some of the other fights in the film. But cool to see a familiar face. And he has one of these kind of typical villain characteristics about him. So you see him on
kind
film.
Of almost always cast that way. Yeah.
Yeah, you can imagine that.
Apparently he's also in The Prodigal Son, at some point. So
yeah, I believe it.
Have to keep an eye out for him when we watch that.
Another excuse to rewatch Prodigal Son.
Yeah, as if you
needed it, right? Yeah. So once she's kind of beat up and thrown out, Chinyuet Sang's character, So Ha-yi, kind of tries tiptoeing back home. And it's unclear just how long he's been away, but there's just a super fun scene between the two of them, with Brandy doing most of the physical stuff here. Although once again, really great use of editing and camera design for how this all works. So there's some wonderful Simon moments as well. But yeah, just seeing Linda Lynn's character just try to beat up So Ha-yi is just so fun. And again, we're really resourceful with all the items that are kind of hanging around this backyard. There's this bucket. And then one of my favorite moments towards the end where So Ha-yi is just jumping on this broom and just
like a pogo stick.
Yeah,
it's
so
great.
Good.
And the same as before. So now, just at the tail end of this interaction, Yuen Chun-yi shows up. But what you find out is he's coming back home. So he gets in the middle of this, and they recognize each other. And Beggar So's wife tells him, like, "This is your father. Like, say hello to your father."
Yeah, that's what he says.
Call him Dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
Right.
And
again, the meta layer here is really fun.
Yeah, it's so funny. And the whole bit of reaction from Beggar So and Simon's acting in here is really good. He kind of has these very cartoonish gestures, and then when he confronts Linda about it, like, "Oh, I see you've been..."
He's like, "Oh, so you were sleeping around when I was gone?"
Yeah, he does like
She's
this
like, "I
funny
adopted him,
hand
you
gesture.
idiot."
Yeah, that's all really great.
And he's like, "You couldn't have picked a smarter son."
And
so
poor Yuen Chun-yi, or Foggy as he's known, he kind of takes it all,
Yeah, I was gonna say I like, he does obviously want to, he wants his dad to love him and to impress him, but he's never like, "I just want your love, Dad." He's just like, "Well, I'm gonna show you, Dad." And he's very positive all the time, which I kind of love.
What you find out from this sequence is that Beggar So says he has been sending money to support his family, but it seems to have not gotten to them. So what they decide to do is Beggar So and Foggy go to the bank, and now we get to see Dean Sheck again. And I believe his name is Moneybags.
Moneybags is what he's credited as, yeah. I probably mentioned this before, but I feel like every Dean Sheck character is like a different thing that if you saw it in Western media, you'd think that it was like a racist kind of depiction of Chinese people.
Oh my gosh, I totally know what you mean.
But it's within the context of obviously a Hong Kong movie, so it's fine. It's just funny. Like, either has like the big buck teeth or the big mole, or like he has like the mustache that's like just on the sides of his lips instead of in the middle.
Totally. And these really thin, kind of like rectangular glasses.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It seems like So Ha-yi and Foggy are asking for a really reasonable request. Like, "Oh, where's the money from my account that I sent?" And So Ha-yi's being really, polite and kind of coy about all of this. Eventually, Moneybags kind of leads him. It's hard to understand like what this area is, but he leads him kind of to this sort of secret back door of the bank, and that's where he kind of
the secret kung fu
confesses
room that
kind of reveals what he's all about. But prior to that, there's a cool little exchange where again we have almost this like rhyming couplet.
Yeah, it's like a musical almost.
Yeah,
like it feels like he's going to start singing
there's
and
this
dancing.
like drum, so it's a little flubby in the English dub. They're not even really trying to hit the timing with the drum, but
when it's money that you need in this bank, then you get it with speed. A client who comes to us, he ends up with interest plus money bags, they call me.
In the Cantonese and in the Mandarin version too, it's really kind of cool how they have that exchange, and because then Beggar So kind of comes back at him with his own rhymes.
好幾份唔驗燒，10蚊8蚊就托到你房。你唔使咁囉嗦，我正想揾你嚟幫忙。
So maybe a little early Wu-Tang influence here.
Yeah.
Nice.
In this moment.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes, I just wrote down receipts save the day.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that's such a great shot. That'd be an amazing GIF. Because, yeah, Simon like pulls out these receipts and then fans himself with it. And then Yuen Wu-Ping cuts to these shots of the tellers around the bank and like everyone's kind of stunned. So that's when then Moneybags brings them, I want to say backstage, but back bank or whatever.
Yeah.
And he has this shrine.
In the dub they say the great old Scrooge.
Yeah, the great old Scrooge. Well, I want to say I think he has 2 deities up in the back because there's one that's I think a more traditional deity associated with prosperity and with money. But yeah, there's this.
Yeah,
the
Scrooge.
First one, yeah. The first one they point to is like, yeah, that Scroogey one. So I'm not. I don't exactly. We don't get how Dean Sheck's business works because he's pretty much just flat out saying like, I take money, I never give it back.
Yeah, he explains these. He has like these rules, but the rules are like just so he can get away with scamming people.
Yeah,
he's like, it's just the total opposite of what you'd expect from a bank.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, well, why is he telling them all these plans? Like the only kind of people that do that are, like Bond villains or something. Well, it's because he's planning to kind of like open up a can of his kung fu on these guys. We've mentioned before Dean Sheck isn't really known as a martial artist, but this is a really fun sequence, how this all works. And ultimately, Foggy's not quite up to the task.
Yeah.
But I do love where this fight ultimately goes. The stuff with Foggy is really fun. But where it ultimately goes with Simon kind of piece by piece, like reclaiming the jewelry and all the expensive items that Moneybags is wearing, and just the cleverness and all that choreography and how you
whenever they
camera
do
for that stuff. Oh,
whenever they do
so
like the
good.
cartwheel together.
Oh my gosh.
They're like spinning off
dude,
each
that's
other and they just
classic.
keep going. Oh, it's so cool.
And I think that's right after that where Dean Moneybag says,
I'm gonna be sick.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I love that. But again, like what we were saying is, Dean Sheck not being a practiced martial artist, we have a moment here where Yuen Wu-Ping and the Yuen clan just make everybody look so good.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
and also
it's
so
cool
interesting.
seeing that.
It's like, overall, I can understand maybe describing Dance of the Drunk Mantis is a little bit sloppier than Drunken Master. But for me, pound for pound, our martial arts sequence and our choreography, I don't know, might kind of outdo the previous movie. I'm big words.
It's like I said,
Got spicy
kind
takes
of,
all over this episode.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hot take, but there's so much fun in this film, and I think that the people that know, but
right.
And I'm not saying that we know more than anyone else, but I think from our enjoyment, I mean, but our the enjoyment that I get out of this film really just rings true to what I know in my history with films as like a great kung fu film.
Right.
And it should be regarded that way, I think.
Yeah. And that's not to knock Drunken Master at all, but it's just to say that, I mean, almost every physical sequence in this movie is like so inventive, looks so good, so well performed. The rest of it. Oh, a great GIF moment would have to be when Simon grabs Dean Sheck's glasses and puts them on. I don't know why. It's just so cool seeing Simon
and also,
with the glasses.
Yeah,
and then
when
starting
they're
to take his jewelry. Oh.
Yeah, when they're tied together with the necklace and he's kind of prancing.
Oh, and then the way he gets it off is by flipping over his head. Oh,
it's great. Yep.
One interesting thing here is he says whenever he's taking the jewelry, he's saying like, "Oh, I can use this for this thing or whatever." But one of the things that he says in the dub, they translate it as like, "I can use this for All Souls Day" or something like that.
You looked it up.
I looked it up. Yeah.
Me too.
And in the subtitles it says Qing Ming money. And Qing Ming, we've discussed it before actually in the podcast. It's also called Tomb Sweeping Day, and it's like a holiday where people like clean up the tombs of like deceased loved ones and like offer things to the ancestors and stuff. So it was just a cool little thing I skipped. You did that too, Carlos?
I totally did. Yeah, and it's a nice moment of localization. You know, that's the most understandable way that any English viewer will understand that. So I think it's a really good job.
That was pretty clever. Oh, before we leave this sequence, any excuse you can find to have Sam the Seed talking about the piss pot. That'd be cool because they eventually, kind of kick Dean Sheck onto this chamber pot, and then it ends up getting on his head like a Mad Hatter kind of thing, and it's
all those lines are great. Yeah.
Hold the piss pot. Have a piss. Go away your own piss.
They're all really good.
This is a very dumb take, but whenever Dean Sheck gets like his nose pinched, so his nose is all red, like a Beggar So's nose. I don't know, just seeing him, just rewatching it right now. If you could transport Dean Sheck from this time to today, he could totally play Waluigi in a.
Oh my god!
Like he has the same like pointy kind of features and has a little mustache and stuff.
Yes.
Anyways, that's apropos of nothing.
So even though it seems like they kind of exited the bank pretty giddy, when we cut back to them having dinner at home, So Hot Yi is just really embarrassed of this kid, Foggy, and really kind of putting him down and, criticizing what a poor martial artist he is.
Had one of my favorite dub lines is just the way that he says,
"You're lazy and you have no talent."
It's so good. And again, just this other layer of it being like a real dad talking to a real son.
Mm-hmm.
But his mother tries intervening and saying like, "Oh yeah, you should teach him Drunken Fist."
So now he does start, quote unquote, teaching him Drunken Fist. And he teaches him like a couple of the actual things, but most of it is just an excuse for him to like do his chores for him. Or
they're these time wasters, or he's using him for his convenience.
It's my kind of almost like a Tom Sawyer vibe or whatever.
Yes.
I'm with you with these topical
topical references. My favorite is whenever he's like telling him to like practice like punching with these teacups, but his arms are attached to these ropes that are pulling like this big mat that's fanning Beggar So while he's just chilling on like a hammock.
Yeah, and there's the really brutal one where he's on these like, I don't know, 12-foot tall ladders, and he's doing these kind of bends just to crack some walnuts.
And doesn't that seem like the same location from the Dead Drop in Drunken Master?
You're right.
It totally does. You're right. Yeah.
That's probably what it is too. I wouldn't be shocked. And I love that Beggar So has just this whole super lazy system where like he's not even grabbing the walnuts with his hand. He's like raking them into a bowl and then pulling the bowl to him.
You can imagine some kind of crazy Rube Goldberg contraption, but just so Beggar So can like get his wine poured, and it's like this torture training for Foggy.
Yeah.
But if I had any kind of animation talent, I would love to see like a looped gif of like a far back shot of him like cracking the walnuts and then him raking them in and like in a perfect loop. I could see that.
That'd be great. And so then we have what could be like a heart-to-heart scene after kind of this montage. And unlike Freddie Wong, Foggy still has all this pluck and all this optimism. And so he's asking So Hot Yi, well, how long will it take me to master this? And he holds up 3 fingers and he's like, 3 days? Wow, that's exciting. He's like, no, 3 years. And now he kind of starts ripping into him even more. And he's like, basically insulting him. You're stupid. You don't know what you're doing. And he tries to get him to drink. And the poor guy's like, no, I don't drink. Mom told me basically not to be like you.
That's a great deadline too.
So
Mama
then
said
So
never
Hot-
to drink.
yeah.
Just look at you.
Yeah. Oh man. But them's drinking words. So So Hai just like seriously forces liquor down his throat, and he kind of like conks out, and so assumes that he's like out cold and asleep, and so now he finally basically says what he really thinks, in case he hadn't been brutal enough. He's like, I'm not teaching you anything. I'm not teaching you any kind of drunken style. I'm just basically just having fun with you. And it's so brutal how he acts to him. And then I love Yuen Ping is cutting to these kind of intimate shots where we can see that Foggy's hiding his face from So Hot Yi, and he doesn't reveal that he is awake. He's hearing all of this and he's crying, and it's, oh man, this is rough.
It's crazy. You know how in Drunken Master, the way they kind of address the alcoholism is in Beggar So's shaky hands. You could almost see this as like the abusive father alcoholism going on,
man.
Where it's like, yeah, you little whatever, like you're nothing. You know, it's like, whoa, this got so real all of a sudden.
Yeah. And so wakes up the next morning. He's like, oh, is that guy already gone? He up so early practicing, and he only has one of his kung fu shoes on. And I love how like battered and holy his shoes are. He's looking for the other shoe, and it's on the table, and it's kind of holding this note in place. And he reads it, and it's from Foggy. And it's like you were saying, Matthew, where he's been such a whipping boy, but he kind of takes it in stride. And even here, after he's been so kind of beaten down, he's still saying, it's like, look, it's just not gonna work out. I wish that, you could call me your son, but clearly I'm not good enough for you. And then Yuen Ping cuts to this almost kind of abstract shot of Foggy composing the letter against this like black screen, and we can see that he's like tearing up as he's writing this. And then this leads to our similar kind of flashback montage. I think it's more effective in this movie.
It is.
But because for one, we're not just going back to the sequence from like 40 seconds ago.
Yeah, it's a couple of minutes ago.
A couple minutes ago. And we're seeing kind of the montage of, all the abuse that he was, putting Foggy through. And we see that it affects him. Simon actually tears up a little bit in one of these close-ups. And I can't think of another movie where we quite see that out of him in a performance.
So now it jumps to Foggy again, and it seems like he's got another restaurant job, and they're kind of in the back, and one of his coworkers is like kind of complaining, like, there's a guy that's still here, like, can you tell him to leave? And then when he goes out to see who it is, it's Corey Yuen. So I don't think they refer to him by name at all in the film, but you just know him as Rubber Legs, his student.
Yeah.
And
or like man with spear. It's probably written somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. He's very confident and serious all the time. And he's always kind of seeming like he'd be ready for a fight. And they're just about to get into things, and then Rubber Legs actually shows up. So you know that now Rubber Legs and his student are looking for Beggar So, and Foggy hears this, and so he doesn't reveal anything yet, but he knows that they're staying there. And that leads us to our next encounter. So we get to see Corey Yuen and Yun Shen-yi go at it, and it's really great.
Yeah.
And I like that he's Foggy's kind of talking some smack here, because they say that they're going to he needs 2 rooms and 1 coffin for Sam C.
Right.
And the next morning, Foggy's like, 1 coffin's a little tight for 2 people to fit into.
That lovely kung fu dialogue, man. That's like so cool. You're like matching wits, but also smack talking at the same time. It's perfect.
Totally.
And he's talking completely out of his league.
Right. But seeing these two go up against each other is amazing. one of the projects in between this film and our last subject, Drunken Master, is an incredible movie called Born Invincible, directed by Joseph Kuo.
Yes.
That was shot in Taiwan. And Corey Yuen was part of the stunt team for that, along with the Yuen brothers. So sometimes the Yuen clan includes the other kind of Yuen, but there are some moments in that film where you actually can see Yun Chunyi and Corey together, and it's clear they have that same kind of almost ESP sense that we talked about in Drunken Master with Jackie and Shu Sha in that great sequence. And what's cool here is we're getting to see a little bit more drunken fighting, and as the protege of Rubber Legs, it seems that Corey Yuen's character maybe has kind of more of a refined sense of the drunken style, and so he's kind of teasing and coaching Foggy while they're fighting. There's a great moment where Foggy's trying to do the drunken cups, and he's like, "Oh, it looks like your cup tipped over, dude."
Yeah, it's so cool because he's got the same stance, but he's holding his hand tilted, and it's this visual thing where you're supposed to imagine it, but it's funny, criticizing that technique by the realization that, if you did have a cup, your wine would be spilled.
Right.
So good.
And the fight, while it's a great sequence, it's going pretty bad for Foggy. At one point, it seems like Corey's character could almost kill him, and Rubber Legs actually stops the fight.
Yeah, he says, "Let him go, and he'll lead us to Sam's seed." That's what they say in the dub.
Right.
They'll lead him to Beggar So, and sure enough, we see that Foggy comes in like all limping and hurt back to home.
Man. Whoa, man. Mantis. Whoa, Mantis.
So for this intermission, I want to talk about the Mantis style. I don't think we've seen it on the podcast yet, and it's definitely really interesting. So I thought I'd mention a little bit about it, and not only just about the style itself, but the mantis. Have you guys ever seen a praying mantis in real life?
I don't think so.
Yes, let's say, now that I think about it, I'm not
Discovery
100%.
Channel and like Attenborough documentaries and stuff.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen two times in my life I've seen a praying mantis, which was
really
awesome. Really surprising for me to see. But anyways, so I have a couple of little facts. I mean, I think everybody kind of knows the scary, the female kills the male after they mate. Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever heard of that before?
I've heard that, but isn't that like only in like captivity? Like that's not actually how they do it in the
I don't know.
Wild.
That was like the easy pull, so I was like, I don't need to mention that. But anyways, so did you guys know that a mantis only has one ear?
Oh wow.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's actually on the underside of its belly. And but
that's cool.
A mantis can detect ultrasonic waves.
Yeah, where are your guys' ears?
Oh, oops. Sorry. I didn't mean to bust you out.
Oh, no.
So I guess bats are like one of the main predators of the mantis, and they've developed a sense for ultrasonic waves to survive against them.
Dude, that's so cool.
I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, so mantis style. So like a lot of things that we've encountered, there's northern and southern styles of mantis, and I think in this film we're going more towards the northern style. And actually Lo Mang, who arguably is our favorite Venom, right?
Yeah.
He's a known practitioner of southern mantis style, and we do see him get to use it a little bit in Ip Man 2 when he the masters,
right, when we see
fight.
all the different community masters.
Yep. So northern mantis origins refer to a legend of a Shaolin abbot that invited 18 masters to help improve the martial arts of Shaolin. So when he had these masters gather, and this is also one of these legends where it's like you don't know what the actual truths are, and I've seen it
Right.
listed that some of the masters that are listed are actually fictional characters from like Water Margin, and so I still think it's fun, so it's worth mentioning. So when these masters gathered, the Shaolin abbot created a manual, and he called it The Secret Hands to document these styles. And Wong Long was the Mantis representative at the 18th, and he was the 18th martial artist of the rest of them. So the Mantis style is a striking style, and it has a focus on close combat. Like Wing Chun, kicks are short and mostly low, so you won't see really. I mean, with Huang Zhengli, and this is also one of these things like in the film where, similar to Drunken Master, we're representing a style, but there's also a fictionalized twist to it also. And you can't have Huang Zhengli in a film practicing Mantis and not do awesome kicks, so you're definitely going to see some awesome kicks when he's practicing. And
right on.
The practitioner will mimic a mantis basically with the style. So you'll see their fingers hooked, and they'll be using the swaying motion that you see like a mantis when it's about to strike its prey. And I think that since a mantis is kind of known as kind of this predatory insect, you will usually see villains practicing the mantis style. And just off the top of my head, that's what I think of. So I think it's in Warriors 2 that Har Kong Feng kind of plays the main villain, and he ends up using mantis style as well. And there's a really cool training sequence in Lao Garlong Shaolin Mantis, also known as Deadly Mantis, and David Chang kind of learns his mantis style by watching a real mantis. Huh. So the other thing that I realized when I was looking up Deadly Mantis is there's also the Deadly Mantis is that like that 50s sci-fi film with like giant mantis attacking. And there's like there's a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode based on that film, so that's also pretty fun.
You better get going. But I got a mantis in my panties.
And I think that with the mantis style, I think we could really have fun doing a animal style themed like group of films. Like,
oh dude, I love that idea.
That'd be a lot of fun, I think. And last episode in our intermission, I mentioned Jackie as Lu Yan in Forbidden Kingdom. And actually, Jet Li's character, when he's playing the monk, he actually uses Mantis to fight Jackie in Forbidden Kingdom. So we kind of get this kind of back and forth of that. So I thought that was really cool. So I also love to mention fighting games. So Mantis in fighting games. So the first thing I think of is Gen in Street Fighter Alpha. Actually, Gen's originally from the first Street Fighter game, but in Street Fighter Alpha 2, they introduced him again, and he actually can change styles between the Crane and the Mantis. And I also think of Lion Rafal in Virtua Fighter. He was introduced in Virtua Fighter 2, and he also practices Mantis style. So I thought that was really cool. And finally, for the intermission, I'm going to mention there's a Godzilla monster, a kaiju named Kamakiras, and he's just a giant mantis. And sometimes they show up in groups. And actually, Kamakiri in Japanese is the name for mantis. And even further than that, Kama, the
I was going to say, isn't Kama like a...
It's like a sickle.
Little scythe thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I believe
so that
we
makes
saw...
sense, because it's like little scythes.
Yeah. The femme fatale in Battle Royale, that was her weapon of choice, was the Kama. The weapon that was given to her. So I just wanted to talk about mantis style a little bit and get us back into our film.
Yeah, we're about to see it put into practice a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, dude, awesome.
Mantis, spelled backwards, is Sitnam. Sitnam. Sitnam.
And so where we pick up our movie is, dude, this is arguably top tier, top 10 fight sequences. I don't know. This is like a legendary.
It's a good one.
This is what I'm saying. Man. How I feel like this movie is like so. It's amazing, and like this scene definitely represents that.
Yeah, this scene after Foggy goes home all broken, then we see Beggar So kind of walking into this dark tea house and like just kind of slowly walking by. It's almost shot like a horror movie, like something's gonna pop out at you.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's this gravitas to this, almost like they know that this is kind of a special sequence or something.
And I love too whenever you get to see, even in these early films, see how Yuen Woo-ping is like growing as a director.
Yeah,
'Cause I feel like some of the shots here are, even as compared to the Drunken Master, there's some amazing, super dynamic shots in this scene.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And in the tea house, Rubber Legs has lit up a candle, and the two of them sit down to share some wine with each other.
Totally alone. It's amazing.
And like, how any kind of encounter between two masters should start. You've got these pleasantries, but it's also at the same time a battle of wits and a showcase of their skills. So not only are they going to share wine with each other, but it turns into choreography itself.
And this has those kind of like layers of, as you say, pleasantries, not unlike the great opening sequence in Magnificent Butcher with Kwon Tak-king reprising his role as Wong Fei-hung and Lei Hoi-san and their kind of calligraphy battle.
Great comparison.
So we have a similar kind of this like stately context to all this. And dude, I could watch this scene 100 times. I mean, sometimes I literally just watch this scene from the movie. The way that it ramps up and how each of them are kind of keeping their cool while it's clear that their intentions are adversarial. It's just awesome. And it's also funny. And we start by these little bursts of action. One of my favorite is after, So Hot Yee's chair is kind of knocked back and he's he's falling backwards. And instead of like making an accusation, he's like, oh, wow, my waist is like a lot more flexible than I thought.
Yeah.
And then there's this explosive like little bit of action and one flips over the table and one slides under the table. And then boom, before you know it, we're back to this kind of like still suspense. And they kind of resume their, their simple act of pouring each other tea. Yeah, this is the kind of thing to almost like study if you're really into how kung fu choreography works in movies.
No, that's the rewatching it now. The calligraphy fights. Turn Georgia there for a second. The calligraphy fight is a really good comparison because it's very similar with like the two old masters, and they're trying to keep their teacups like upright and not spilling any wine while they're fighting, and the fighting just kind of escalates from there. I love whenever they pick up the table and are like spinning it around and then drop it.
Oh man, so good.
And the overhead shot whenever they're like fighting and like the teacups are like switching hands and there's the shot from
dropping
above.
the cups. Oh, so good.
And they're playing like kung fu footsie underneath the table.
Kung fu footsies. Yeah. that could be a movie name, Kung Fu Footsies.
Oh, sure.
There's way dumber names.
And what's also so great about this in terms of movie history is we've had some encounters on screen before, a little bit of a lengthier one in Snake and the Eagle Shadow than in Drunken Master with Huang Zhengli and Yun Su-tin. But how lucky are we that we get something with this much weight and length and kind of care to it. So this is just awesome. And then as we kind of break into more full on fighting, once again, a lot of incredible performing by Brandy Yuen. But every cut back to Simon is like so important and so effective. Just words kind of fail, I think, in some ways, trying to kind of describe what's going on in this fight.
It's mesmerizing,
Yeah,
There's
totally.
a stunt where Beggar So kicks the table towards Rubber Legs, and Huang Zhengli does a jump kick and clears the table. It kind of looks like it might be staged where the table's in the foreground and he's behind it, but still the effect of that shot is amazing. And then eventually you get the moment where Beggar So has to reveal his drunken boxing, and just in turn, Rubber Legs also will do his drunken boxing, and we get I believe we get on the general's orders here. And
but it's a different version than the one we heard.
Yeah, it's like a different arrangement,
which is really cool.
And I really enjoy how this is almost like ceremonial in how they are approaching each other. You see their footwork and you see their swaying back and forth, and it almost looks like they're kind of honoring the tradition of the Drunken Fist as they're preparing to escalate this fight. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you do believe that these two could be like the lone masters of this style. And I like what you're saying, where there's this kind of like reverence and like formality to it. We talked about that in the last episode, how Yuen Woo-ping's approach to martial arts and films is often to kind of emphasize the art. And I think the ceremony around how they reveal their styles is sort of just that. Also, I don't know, a lot of this repartee kind of reminds me of like what you'd see in the old like Errol Flynn movies, like as people are sort of fighting and like having all these kind of like delicious back and forth conversations. And this is maybe one of the best examples of that in like a kung fu setting.
Yeah, you're right. There's almost a charm to the line delivery, even with the dub actors, and the physical acting in this scene. Yeah, it's great. You've got Beggar So kind of displaying the 8 drunken gods in the midst of the choreography.
Yeah,
and it's
great seeing that called back.
Yeah, it does seem like he's starting to get the upper hand, but as this fight escalates, you see that Rubber Legs has his own secret, and this is when he reveals the Drunken Mantis. And I'm pretty proud of this. The music pull, there's like this kind of synth wave form, like pulse that they use whenever Rubber Legs demonstrates the mantis. And that's actually from Suspiria, the Italian like
original,
horror
yeah.
film. Yeah, and it's by Goblin, who I love Goblin, and actually the first couple of times I heard it, I was like, that does sound familiar, but I didn't know. But it's actually towards the end of the film where you actually hear some of the material from the Suspiria theme, and I'm like, whoa, holy crap, like I was my own Shazam, basically.
Dude, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Great Paul, man.
And yeah, a lot of the music in these kung fu movies they kind of come from Italian movies from the 60s and 70s, so that kind of makes sense. But the scene ends as Foggy kind of jumps in to save the day. The way that they get away is that Beggar So takes this liquor that Rubber Legs have been pouring into his mouth, and then spits it through this candle and shoots out this like crazy flame at Rubber Legs, which reminded me like we said last week about Chin from KOF.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's one of his
like
signature
awesome
super.
Exit this scene.
Just another testament to how cool this fight. It goes by pretty quickly, but it's actually like 13 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a long one.
You'd expect that at the end of a film, but you get to see this right in the middle, and it really like supercharges you for the rest of the movie.
That's a really good point. It is kind of a break from tradition of what had been kind of building up in like the trend of the kung fu films of this period. Drunken Master is a good example of it. By that point, we'd worked up to like a over 10-minute long final fight. And as much as I love those, I kind of like this sort of innovation of the structure that's happening here. And actually, I want to say you see this sort of thing in subsequent films by Yuen Woo-ping and others. And our final fight in today's movie is nowhere near as long as either this or the final fight from Drunken Master. But honestly, I think this sequence almost in the exact middle of the movie just looms so large. It's almost kind of bonus from here on to the end.
And it is like I was mentioning earlier, how I feel like after this segment, the movie kind of gets a little muddy So I feel like almost like they were like, wow, this is so great. How do you follow this up? And they're just trying to figure out how to work that out. And I mean, for me personally, I think that it comes together really well at the end. But this next sequence is kind of like, we can tighten it up, I think.
Well, I think what happens too is kind of so surprising and not necessarily. You could maybe argue it's not really organic to what has happened so far in the movie.
Yeah, it's like a hard left, really, because like you basically have the setup for student and master and father and son, really, but they kind of take that away after that and kind of lead the student to a new master, and it's like, well, why are you doing that? And what they do here is really weird, and I like that it's really weird because I like weird stuff, right? But it's not fleshed out as solidly as Drunken Master with the 8 drunken gods. So what we have here is Foggy off to get medicine for Beggar So, who's kind of in recovery, and what happens is he ends up in a very familiar setting where we have our training hut from Drunken Master, but the difference here is that there's a coffin, and in this coffin is what will become the Drunken Master equivalent for our Foggy in this film. And he's played by Yen Shi-kwan, who we've seen in a handful of movies over the course of the show.
In China a little bit later on in his career,
Yeah, so that's probably the meatiest role that we've seen him in is Once Upon a Time in China, his Iron Robe.
Right, and in this film, he plays a character called like Sickness Master or Sick Fist Master, and you don't really have an idea of what he actually is. All you kind of know is that dude was chilling out in a coffin, and he's causing some trouble for Foggy. But
so yeah, it is. It really does ask a lot, because you're wondering, wait, is this kind of fantastic now? And
is he just a vampire now? Or
to be fair, Foggy is asking a lot of the questions that we have too. He's like, wait, are you alive or dead? Are you a ghost? Also, by the end of the movie, you find out that he's supposed to be like So-Hak-Yi's brother. It wouldn't have hurt to kind of have that information here, or something.
If he had just been introduced, even just kind of like, even if it was just saying like, whenever I was a child, I was trained among 3 other, styles, and he listed them out. Even if it was just introducing then later it's like, oh yeah, I'm Sickness. I'm the master of the Sickness style or whatever.
Yeah.
Then that would have been something.
Yeah.
And also, I had in my notes, Sickness for the name of a character kind of sounds like a Metal Gear Solid boss.
Oh, totally.
Oh, that's cool.
Like the Sickness.
Yeah, for sure.
By now, I'm sure you've dropped down with the Sickness 3 or 4 times.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, that's more. I guess that was off mic, but more Swim fans overlaps. Have y'all listened to their episode of The One?
It's great. It's
so good.
That's a Heroes 3 recommend, man. If you want to hear some of our friends talking about a martial arts film, they have an episode where they cover basically
they cover a couple of different movies, but one of them's The One.
It's they're basically movies riffing off of The Matrix or ripping off of The Matrix.
Required listening if you're not already subscribed to Swim Fans. Just subscribe first, then
so
listen.
Good.
Yeah.
Anyways.
The dub does, like, there's a moment where Foggy recognizes him. He's like, my mother told me about the 4 ills, and at first I was like, the 4 ills, what does that mean?
4 ills, I'm sure, was a working title for the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, so they're books, magic, sickness, and wine, which is a very strange combination, but here he is representing sickness, and what you find out is Beggar So is representing wine. So this is what I was saying, it's kind of an ambiguous kind of 4 masters kind of situation that's not as realized as it should be. And I don't know, I think it's cool, but it's still kind of weird.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere. I like that it's weird and it's different, but maybe not almost an hour into the movie,
Yeah, and what you have is this little interaction between the two where Foggy has this medicine that he needs to get to his father, but Sickness kind of he takes it and he kind of pulls a switcheroo on him. There's some really inventive choreography using the coffin that I like. And again, we also have a thing where, like I mentioned in the Drunken Master episode, filming outside at different times of the day in the same sequence is kind of noticeable.
Sure, yeah.
But
especially
it's still
in a location like this.
Yeah, it's still really fun. And I like that actually for most of the scene it's foggy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, good call.
That's pretty cool. So in Drunken Master, you can very clearly see the mountain range in the background, but here it's obscured by the fog.
Yeah. You get a couple shots of it at the very end of the movie, but yeah, you're totally right. We're kind of missing out on one of the key features of the landscape here.
Yeah, and so what happens is Foggy returns with the medicine, but he sees there's dead snakes in the droppings, or the leftovers of the medicine. So he realizes,
check for dead snakes before giving medicine to your dad.
Pro tip.
Yep. So he runs back to Sick Fist Master looking for him, and this kind of creates basically the situation that would place him as his student, right? It's weird. I don't know.
But the short version is that he ends up becoming the student of sickness, and he teaches him about that there's the 4 different styles, and that Beggar So is the master of the wine style, and he's the master of the sickness style.
I do really like when he shows the book style. It's
book,
you're mimicking.
Dude. You're hiding behind a book. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think one thing too is that there's nothing in the title, or like you're saying, Matthew, that's set up earlier, where you even have room in your brain to expect a new kung fu style. So I think just a lot about this part of the movie is working at a disadvantage. It's not that the kung fu style isn't cool. You just didn't really desperately need it, right?
Right.
And it's also, there are a lot of cool ideas in it, but it's hard to compete with something so snappy and immediate as drunken boxing, you know?
Yeah, it does seem like they're trying to grab at that same magic from, showing the drunken boxing style, but it's not, I don't know. I think what you get from Foggy after the whole fight with Beggar So and Rubber Legs isn't as strong. If that was all realized better, I think this movie would be regarded much, much, much higher, in the realm of Drunken Master. But because Foggy's kind of last arc in the film isn't as strong, I don't think it works as well.
But we do get a cool training montage here. The kind of the linchpin to all of it is this: he has this bean curd. I don't know what you call them.
Yeah,
bites, I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like little tofu bites.
Yeah, and he's throwing them at Foggy and he says if you catch them the right way, then they won't splatter everywhere, and that's kind of what starts and finishes this. It's cool. Whenever he's training with the poles and these nails in the poles, it kind of reminded me of the Wing Chun kind of training dummy thing.
Oh sure.
Yeah. Also similar to Snake in the Eagle Shadow with the eggs, grabbing the eggs, kind of this. Actually, the bean curd as well, a combination of skill and strength.
And it's cool. It's one of those things that you can visualize. It's there's something so tactile about it. Also, the way that Yuen Woo-ping is shooting it, you're almost imagining yourself oh, would I be able to catch the bean curd? And yeah, there's something like that that's so fun when you can put yourself inside of the training like this.
And Foggy would have a great job as a telephone pole repairman based on this training right here.
Yeah, you just got to pull these nails out of this post. It's intense.
Dude looks ripped though. He really gets to show off his muscles.
Yeah, super. Especially when he's doing those push-ups with sickness on his back, and then he's got to blow into this kind of steaming tea kettle. That's tough, dude.
Mm-hmm. By the end of it, he's able to catch these bean curd things with no problem. And there is this is I can almost just picture Jackie Chan doing this exact same gag where like he keeps throwing them and he's like putting them in different parts of his body and like trying to bounce them on his head. And then he says like,
This Binkert is awful.
It's rotten, that's why.
We do cut then to Beggar So, and Beggar So's been practicing Mantis himself in preparation for his rematch with Rubber Legs. But what happens here is Foggy comes back home and now basically trying to hide his new skills. And Beggar So's kind of curious and suspicious about it.
Yeah.
And they have a little interaction, and Foggy's actually
so good. It's so brief, but it's one of the most like dazzling, exciting pieces of action in the whole movie, I think.
I love, the whole fact that Foggy's kind of holding his jacket over one shoulder, and a lot of his choreography is about him avoiding Beggar So's attacks. And there's a really fun like little sequence where he's basically just spinning around while holding that over his shoulder still.
It's really cool,
really
gifable.
cool.
It's like a reverse shot where it's like this, and it's so pulling at his jacket, but it's like this tumble backwards and then this like leap over Beggar So's head. It's really cool.
There's a couple of cool reverse shots in this movie. Actually, I've used it a few times.
Yeah. So this ends up with, Beggar So looking very confused, almost surprised, right? And then we get a cut of Foggy kind of making his way and Beggar So following him. But what I wanted to say is, man, I wasn't able to find what this music is from.
Yeah, Matthew and I were talking about that earlier.
But it's so good. I feel like it sounds like Goblin to me, but I'd have to do some homework and kind of dig it out, because it's definitely got this kind of funk fusion, kind of leaning almost towards a proggy sound. I love this cue so much. It's great.
And it keeps feeling like it's going to like go into something bigger, but it kind of just holds back, which makes me think it's like the start of a different song.
Yeah, right.
So
he's tracking down Foggy, and Foggy kind of gives him the slip, which leads us kind of to our final interactions, our final showdowns.
And this is where I feel like it's really coming together really well. So you've got Beggar So, and you're expecting him to find Sick Fist Master, but what you see is that Rubber Legs shows up. But at the same time, Rubber Legs' student shows up at Beggar So's home, and he is gonna end up fighting Beggar So's wife. And just after that, then you've got Foggy showing up. So you've got all these like kind of interactions set up, and the stages are set for a really nice finale that I think is really rewarding.
Yeah, it's really cool, and we almost have like a Star Wars style like intercut of
I was thinking that,
which is lots of fun. For me, the fight that you just mentioned, where kind of Yuen comes back and he's fighting Linda Lin, that's maybe my second favorite sequence of the film after the T fight.
It's great.
It's just so terrific. And again, you can see both of these folks' Peking opera background like in full display, and there's this great little device where Yuen's character says like, I'll destroy you in 3 moves. But what he means is like 3 different like techniques of the spear. And it's like
there's a weapon fight too.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Sword against spear. And
it's really
very
cool,
little doubling of Linda Lin. There is at some point, and I wasn't sure if it was maybe Yuen Chung-yan.
I was wondering that too. You can't really tell. It almost looks like a female that's doubling. I couldn't tell for sure, but for the most part, Linda's doing the work, and there's some really dangerous choreography, and you have to admire the trust of these 2 performers working together so closely. They're using, obviously it's not going to be a sharpened weapon, but there's definitely a point at the end, and he's doing these thrusts right at her face, and she's doing this very elegant kind of sways around it. And you'll see a lot of this in martial arts demonstrations, like in competition, but like it's still like really, really shocking to see them just getting so close to each other
with such a big
strikes.
age gap between these 2 It adds this other level of kind of intensity. There's a great moment that's really a classic Yuen Woo-ping concept, where she ends up getting the sword between Koryu's body and the spear, and then she flicks it back to like smack him in the face. And that move and the camera angle, he nods back to in Crouching Tiger, if you remember, in the tea house with
right.
Oh, cool.
And so it's cool. And Ang Lee, I think, even uses the same camera angle that's here. It's really cool.
Very cool. And so she's actually holding her own. She's doing really well. But Foggy then shows up, and Foggy gets the chance to flex his new skills against Koryu. And here we get, it was already awesome, but now we get more awesome, right?
And we mentioned before that these two, it's like, have such incredible chemistry. They may as well be the same kind of Yuen.
Yeah. As I say, they might as well be actual brothers.
Yeah. But oh man, so good.
Foggy gets the spear, and I like he puts
the kung fu shoe on it.
Yeah, he puts the kung fu shoe on it, and he at one point he's like, if there wasn't a shoe on this, I would have stabbed you or whatever. And then that's whenever the Koryu reveals that his master is fighting Beggar So, and then like you said, it's like a Star Wars cut back to the two of them fighting.
Yeah, in the middle of it, and this is awesome, and it's again mostly like a full on Brandy Yuen versus Hwang Jung-lee. It's a really great kind of burst of choreography, and then Beggar So finds himself by this coffin, and there's this really awesome moment where he's like shimmying himself underneath it, and then he's mysteriously kind of like pulled up into the coffin. It's so cool how they pulled this off in the camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of those I had to kind of rewind because I was, wait, what just happened?
Yeah, totally.
I like how this introduces Sick Fist Master and Beggar So to each other. You do get the sense that they already know each other, but I really like the kind of conceit that Sick Fist Master, even though he's been introduced to the fight, he's still avoiding it. So he's like, no, I'm just here to watch, basically.
Right. Yeah, and so then we get to kind of resume some more of this great Rubber Legs versus So Hot Yi, and we get some more of that incredible like praying mantis splits with the Suspiria music. But yeah, it's awesome having Yen Shi-kwan's character kind of cheering on her, like coaching from the sidelines.
And Foggy comes back in to save the day once again. And although this time he actually knows what he's doing a little more. And I love the way that he gets into the fight as he throws the spear. And Rubberleg says something like, you have to deal with my student. And he's like, oh, well, whose spear do you think that is? I just threw.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's cold. Yeah, so good. And I love that we haven't said this explicitly, but there were so many, drunken imitator films, and you might have to take a step back to kind of appreciate just how different Dance of the Drunk Mantis is from those. It's really not trying to replay the same beats from Drunken Master and sort of like, imitate some of those same scores. And this final fight, I think, is a great example. You'd maybe expect in the sequel to Drunken Master that the final fight would be similar and have everything to do with drunken boxing, that same kind of like lengthy like exposition of all of the different drunk deities or whatever.
Yeah,
and I like that it's whatever we might say about that third quarter of the movie or whatever, it does a lot in making this film kind of stand apart on its own. And in some ways you're almost forgetting Drunken Master, and it doesn't have to kind of live in its shadow or copycat it all that much. And this is just a really cool sequence, and Foggy's pretty dominant here in this fight.
It almost seems like he's toying with him towards the end of the fight. And like you were saying, I do think that even though the techniques and the training are kind of a more ambiguous idea, I think that the way that they're realized in this fight are really well executed. The thing that is kind of weird though is like towards the end of this, it's like this fight ends very strangely. Did you guys think that? Where it's like Sick Fist Master basically tells Foggy to just go berserk.
Yeah.
And then he like loses control and does like this kind of crazy backbreaker.
Well, they try to set it up during the training when he's pulling out the knives out of the post. He says something similar, and that's when he's finally able to pull it clean through the full post. But yeah, I don't think they necessarily I don't think they hang a lantern on that quite enough. So it does seem a little random when he's telling him to kind of go berserk. But I think it's meant to be a callback to kind of like the full version of the style or whatever.
Okay, yeah. I do like the other moments though where it's like Foggy with the kind of wobbly leg and they call back to the bean curd stuff like that's all like really well done. But yeah, that weird and actually like there's a moment where when Foggy's like kind of putting rubber legs through all of these moves, you actually see Huang Zhangli like in like pain, which you're not used to seeing rough. Like such a cool villain. Like he's just straight up like, I think it's when he's like bending his leg around when he's rubber legging him.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He looks
that
like
is
he's
cool
in
when he has
genuine
the
pain.
when Yuen Chun-Yi does, because there's supposed to be kind of this like medical side to this sick fighting, and when he does like a test your reflexes on your leg kind of kung fu joke, I think that's pretty great.
So yeah, like I said, he goes berserk. He ends up doing this kind of finishing move, which is like a backbreaker, and he's still in the middle of this rage. And what you have here is Beggar So coming towards him, and he still sees rubber legs. And he like pursues him to attack, and you're like, whoa. And that's where you get your freeze frame where they're like jumping away and it freezes. And
that's
it's actually
cool freeze frame.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous freeze frame because like Brandy is like almost like swan diving into nothing.
Yeah.
And I think it's super funny, the final beat.
Yeah. And like we were saying at the beginning of the movie, the film stock here for the last like 3 minutes literally looks like it's about to catch on fire.
Yeah.
Like
really bad.
Like it's really like these weird blues and like it's really, really bad shape. And it's funny because then it almost adds to like the frantic energy of this last little section of the movie.
And that can happen a lot with film if there's not enough weeder, or I forget what the right term is. So, this would have been stored with the end of the film probably like exposed to the elements or something. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I wish there was a really awesome transfer of this movie, because really it could look as in an ideal world, it could look as good as that Drunken Master transfer that we were watching last time.
Really fun stuff, guys.
But yeah, that's Drunken Mantis, or Dance of the Drunk Mantis. It's a really good movie. It was definitely a cool way to look at like another Drunken Master movie from the same time that kind of tackles it in like a different way. It's like the same characters, but it's very different story compared to the last one.
Yeah, we mentioned these other kind of also-rans. I've seen World of Drunken Master, and I've seen Story of the Drunken Master.
That was for the Super Nintendo, right? World of Drunken Master.
Yeah, totally. It was one of those like not Nintendo approved like Christian games.
Yeah, I think
it's about communion and stuff.
I'm worried that I'm combining them.
It's a wisdom tree game.
Hey, totally. I have one of those.
I definitely had one of those on the Game Boy.
Bible Adventures, I think I have on Nintendo still, the cartridge. Maybe it's worth money, I don't know. But Story of the Drunken Master, I believe, has Casanova Wong in it, and there's some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, there are some good scenes in that for sure.
But they really don't compare to this film. So I feel like those are like kind of completionists if you want to see Simon Yun's Beggar So stuff, but this is, if you watch this movie and you watch like Drunken Master, Snake and the Eagle's Shadow, you're good. Don't feel like you
totally.
Don't feel like you're missing out on anything else.
And I mean, and we've talked about maybe some of the strange moments in the movie, but there are also some straight legendary sequences.
Yeah.
I mean, the T fight is like, required viewing. It might be like top 10 for me. And also it's great seeing on the podcast Huang Zhangli in kind of the garb that he's like a little more famous for. Another one of his nicknames is the Silver Fox. And because there were actually quite a few movies where he ended up having this white wig. So this is actually kind of like later in that run. But the Secret Rivals film, Secret Rivals 1 and 2, Snuff Bottle Connection. There's a handful where it's almost kind of typecast in this white wig. I think that's one of the reasons why in Drunken Master, he has such a distinctively different look. He's a little bit tired of that kind of thing.
Nice.
But yeah, we've avoided some of those movies, so it's cool to be able to see this because it's really kind of an iconic look. And when you pair up that, Silver Fox icon with the icon that is Simon Yuen, I mean, that's magic right there.
All right, guys, I've got 5 questions for you.
Oh man,
you ready?
Okay. I think so. Okay.
Here we go again. Our Dance of the Drunk Mantis quiz. All right, question number 1. What are the 4 ills that Foggy's mother told him about?
Oh, dude.
Hang on. Book, magic, illness, and wine, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good job. All right.
I feel like that could be like a D&D campaign. Could have those 4 things as like.
Yeah, I like that.
Watch out for
awesome.
books, man. They're just
books
bad.
will get you.
Yeah.
Can't trust them.
Okay, next question. Based on the 2 films we've seen, what is Beggar So's favorite snack?
Wine.
It's got to be walnuts.
Walnuts outside of wine. Damn it, wine is the obvious answer. But
well, I know you. I know you actually
wine
meant.
soaked walnuts, I think. Yeah.
Okay, all right, here we go. What are some words that rhyme with Corey?
Hi, you've reached the Corey hotline. $4.95 a minute. Here are some words that rhyme with Corey.
Story, allegory, Montessori.
Gory.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you picked that one up, man.
Did I also watch too much Simpsons?
Yep. Oh, well done. All right. Number 4. Even though Wang Feiheng doesn't show up in this film, Yan Shiquan, the Sick Fist Master, does end up fighting him. Can you name that movie?
Oh, we said it. Once Upon a Time in China.
Yeah.
He's fighting Jet Li as Wang Feiheng.
And actually, he's in Once Upon a Time in China 2 as well, in a different role.
All right, you're killing it. All right. So here's our final question of the episode. How many films have we seen Dean Sheck in on the podcast so far?
Oh, man.
This is kind of tough.
1, 2. So the very first film, Snake and Eagle Shadow.
Yep.
Most recent
Drunken
one,
Master,
Drunken
of
Master.
course. This one. I think he's in Yes, Madam at some point. Maybe I'm thinking of a different one, but
oh yeah, doesn't he pop up in like a 80s film, like a later?
I'm gonna say 4.
Okay,
Marty.
Oh man.
Even if your guess is right and you can't talk it out, I mean that's fine.
The number will be fine.
The number will be fine, and I'll explain it. Of course.
Okay. 4 actually sounds right to me. I want to say he popped up in our Samo arc somewhere as well.
Is that it? 4?
Oh, to be different, I'll say 5.
5 is the answer.
Ah.
So.
Oh man, I don't feel like I earned that.
No, it's okay. Everyone's learning right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've got Snake and the Eagle's Shadow, Broken Oath.
Broken
plays
Oath. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
He plays the brothel manager in Broken Oath.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Iron Fisted Monk.
Iron Fisted Monk. That's the Sammo one. Okay.
He was one of the Manchu. Actually, I think we mentioned it a little while ago. Drunken Master and Dance of the Drunk Mantis. So here we are.
Oh,
5 times. Great. We've been
Broken Oath
blessed
is the
with his
weird
presence.
one. Because I feel like Broken Oath is like everyone was in that one, but that's definitely not as big as a lot of the other movies that we've done.
Yeah, and they're not like a lot of those actors aren't playing their kind of like vintage or like, what they're famous for doing. Yeah.
Right. So not as goofy this time. I had to slip a Simpsons reference in.
Of course.
Nice.
But you guys did great. Yeah, awesome job.
Well, cool.
Oh, awesome. That was fun.
Well, thank you so much for listening to our little show here. If you like the show, then you can leave us a review on whatever you're listening to this on. So whatever your podcatcher is, so Stitcher, iTunes, or Podcast Addict. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're at Heroes, the number 3 podcast on all 3 of them. And thank you to the Kung Fu Cinema subreddit if you're checking us out from there.
This album had already been released, but I went and I redid the artwork for Will's Superstar Squadron.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's so cool.
I've been messing around with digital art, and I'm trying to level myself up. So I actually started off just practicing by redoing it, and once I started doing it, I was like, kind of want to do all of this. So I redid the artwork, and to commemorate that, Will actually composed a new track. So we kind of re-released the album.
It's a deluxe version.
Yeah, it's
so
like
good.
a deluxe version, and it's really cool. I love the music, and I'm really happy with how the art came out. So if you guys are interested in like some chiptune, in the vein of video game music, I'd highly recommend it. So check out Superstar Squadron, and I'll add it to the episode post.
Next week, we're going to be continuing our Drunken Martial Arts arc. So, Marty, what is our training for next week?
Yeah, so we're having some fun with the next choice. As we said, Dance of the Drunk Mantis really can lay claim to being a sequel to Drunken Master, and it's a pretty far jump to go from there to the film that we know as Drunken Master 2 in the 90s. But we do have a really, I think, really awesome film to talk about that I think will kind of help carry us some of that distance. And it's 1984's Drunken Tai Chi, once again directed by the master himself, Yuen Woo-ping. And this was the very first leading man vehicle for a young Donnie Yen.
Yes.
So
very cool.
It's at the time, it was sort of seen as not being a successful film and maybe kind of a nail in the coffin of a certain era of period-based kung fu comedies. But I think if you step away from that context, I don't know, the movie is just awesome. And I think will aesthetically help us to kind of move away from the kind of late 70s, early 80s, and be a little more prepared for the kind of action we'll see in our final film of the series. But we'll have some familiar faces with us next week, including Yuen Chun-yi, Yuen Chung-yan, actually another Yuen brother we haven't talked about much, Yuen Yat-chor, and Brandy Yuen is back. And actually the script for this film was a collab between Brandy and Yuen Woo-ping himself.
Very cool. Well, until next week, we're taking a look at Drunken Tai Chi. I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And we are the Heroes 3. Taking us out this week is Neptune Afternoon from Superstar Squadron by Will Brueggemann. Remember your training. Heroes 3 is part of the Mercado Brothers Podcast Network.